Hello, Pat Carty here again. I was very fortunate this past weekend, at the very last minute, to get into Oasis in Croke Park on Sunday. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Oasis because everybody has been talking about it. When I got the ticket, it was way up in the gods in the Cusick stand in the upper level, and I thought I might as well be at home really watching this. But when I got there, it turned out to be a great seat. I was at the end of the row, so being an old man, I was able to sit down for a lot of it rather than having to stand, and I had a great view of the stage. But that's not really what I want to talk about. As fabulous as the concert was, to my right, there was a couple in the next row, two women, one younger and one a bit older, and I presume that they were mother and daughter, and they were having the time of their lives. They were dancing and singing and jumping up and down and Instagramming themselves and all the rest of the things that everybody does. And you see that at every concert now, that people go along with their offspring, and fair enough, I do it myself, but it wasn't always like that. We didn't always all shuffle to the same playlist. Back when I was a lad, God, that sounds terrible, but anyway, when I was a lad, I took the bus up to see, I grew up in Tullamore, I took the bus up to see U2 in Croke Park as well in 1987, and a couple of weeks later I was brought with aunts and uncles to see David Bowie in Slane. Now, could I imagine my mother or father beside me, my mother giving it a bit of With or Without You, or my father shouting Rebel Rebel at the top of his voice? No, I could not unless I was in some sort of fevered dream. The reason for that generational gap was, I suppose, my parents grew up just before music became a kind of a blanket thing that everybody was involved in. So while music was something that was in their lives, it wasn't as important as it was to me when I was growing up. So music was everything to me as a teenager and as a younger man, and has always been in my life. And so my children really didn't have any choice. They were going to hear music all the time growing up. There was one incident where a kind of a Freaky Friday reversal where my eldest daughter came charging down the stairs and demanded I turn down a Van Halen record. And depending on your thoughts on Van Halen, maybe you agree with her. But my children had music playing all the time. So to them now, and this does seem strange to me, they've never bought a CD, never bought a record. They don't care about context or history or anything like that, all the stuff that I spent years learning about. It's all one big thing to them. All music exists in a kind of eternal now, and so it's great to see them listening to 1 minute David Bowie and the next minute Taylor Swift. To them, it's all one thing, and maybe that's a more healthy approach. As regards the gigs, sometimes that works out great. If I'm standing at Gorillas with my daughters, I'm having a great time, and other times I have to go to see artists that perhaps I'm not quite as interested in. Owen, who's shooting me right now, tells me about going to Wembley to see a K-pop band at the weekend. I'm glad I had to miss that one, but that's the way it goes. I was at a festival this summer for the first time in a couple of years. I was down at Forest Fest in Emo, in County Laois, and it's great the way that you can see that it's designed for families to have a good time, that there is fun fair rides and proper food facilities. The days of the old £10 half-frozen burger are long gone, and good riddance to them. And so we all kind of go with our families now, which is a very strange thing when you think about it. I have two daughters, one in her early 20s and one in her late teens. And because I'm kind of in a privileged position, which I really appreciate, that I get to review some gigs, they're always tapping me for tickets. So we end up at loads of gigs together, and I try and maintain the old cool dad persona. But it doesn't always work out, as you'll read in the article I'm talking about, where maybe the lyrics of the performer in question make me feel a bit awkward and make me start to sweat a bit. But at other times, you're standing beside your child at a gig, and they are very moved by the music, and you can find that a very moving experience. But you can read all about my fantastically interesting adventures in this Sunday's Independent and on independent.ie. Not only is it the best-selling paper in the country, it's also the best paper in the country.